Good morning, good morning, good morning. You're welcome. You're welcome. If you can hear me, please can you say hi? Hello, good morning. You're all welcome. Okay, okay. You're welcome. Okay. Um, let's give 5 more minutes for others to join. How are you doing, Bridget Wambua? Please, are you the one from what country are you from, please? Okay. Kenya, Nairobi. How is Kenya this morning? Hope the weather is conducive. Okay. So um, today we are going to be covering the things we have done so far from week one to till today, till this week. Yeah, till last week we are going to cover everything. We look into um, areas where we are confused. So if you have questions, I'll be able to answer you today. And also, we are going to be discussing about deploying our application. That's the Node.js application we'll be working on these few weeks. So we'll be deploying it so that it will go live. So today is going to be more of us discussing, going through things together. So, okay, we have just 1 minute left. Okay. Um, okay. So let's get started. Good afternoon. Good morning. Sorry, I was faster than my time. Okay. We have been talking about Node.js, and we have literally discussed a lot in Node.js. So today we'll be discussing more on today we'll be discussing more on topics that we have treated, the areas we have worked on, and also deploy those application. We deploy the application, and another thing we would answer questions. So let me. Uh, I hope I'm loud and clear. Let me share my screen so we can get started. Okay, I'm not sharing my screen. If you can see my screen, please indicate. Let me hear you say hi. Let me know you can see my screen. Okay. Can you see my screen? Okay. If okay, I assume you can see my screen, so we can proceed then. Um, throughout this whole program, we have been discussing on a lot of things, and yeah, we'll be going through them together. We'll be going through them together, and also look into deploying our application. So, okay, okay, welcome. You're welcome, my guy. It's not my guy. Welcome from Zambia. Okay, so it seems you're just coming now. So let me just brush you back to what we just discussed. Today we'll be revising on things we have worked on in the previous weeks. We'll deploy our application to live server. Then also we would also get to answer our questions if there is any. So on our first class, we actually treated the introduction of Node.js. We treated the introduction of Node.js, and where we talked about okay. Okay, this was our first class where we talked about back-end development, the history of Node.js, where we say back-end development involves writing code that runs on the server and is responsible for handling tasks such as data storage, retrieval, processing. It's like the brain of a web application, managing everything that happens behind the scene. So um, we are familiar with back end right now. To an extent, some of us have gotten the glimpse of uh, what the difference is between back end and front end development. So it's not a big thing to grasp. So we actually talked about the history of Node.js. I assume we all have this notes. We talked about the architecture, where we discussed about how Node.js uh, how Node.js is single threaded, and how it actually performs asynchronous um, operation. So all these things we have discussed, and we are familiar with them. We also discussed on reasons why we should use Node.js, how easy it is to learn. We can see for ourselves. The freedom in app development, where we talk about Node.js being completely unpopulated, meaning you can build everything from scratch and tailor every last details. It can execute basic tasks, but gives you only a bare minimum from a fresh install, allowing you to add features from there with less restrictions. We talked about how it is easy to modify, um, it's easy to build a full stack application with Node.js because of its popularity with JavaScript. We talked about the active community, how you can easily get resources related to Node.js, how you can actually get help easily because of how vibrant the group is, how common JavaScript is also. So yeah, we talked about a lot of things. We talked about Node Package Manager. You understand, where we discuss Node Package Manager does few things. Firstly, it acts as an online repository for publishing open source Node.js projects. I hope we're all following. So we talked about all these things, and we had to even discuss about our IDE environment, where we talked about different IDEs where we actually write our code. IDE, that's where the environment where we execute our code. This is an IDE. For example, this is VS Code. We talked about how we install VS Code, how we get to set it up and configure things and use VS Code. So all these things were discussed in our first class. Then we moved to our second class, where we discussed about JavaScript data types. We discussed about data types, where we talked about primitive data types, strings, numbers, boolean, undefined, null, non-primitive, which are the objects, array, functions. We talked about functions. Then we came back to we talked about GitHub. But let's say take a little um, let's look into this. See, JavaScript is dynamically typed language, which means that variables can hold values of different types without any explicit type declaration. JavaScript supports several data types, each serving a specific purpose. So basically, JavaScript um, performs operations with data types. So these data types are actually how we can actually handle data. You understand, and we assign them to variables. So the the few data types that common data types which JavaScript operates with is we have string, where we show this an example. You define a variable, let name be equal to John. Just like that, we have number. You execute the number, let age, you assign it to a number, then the data type becomes number. So these are just um, simple example of how we how we can actually pass data in JavaScript and also in Node.js too. So we came down to um, the second part, where we discussed about GitHub. Saying GitHub is a popular platform for hosting and managing software projects using Git, a distributed version control system. It offers a suite of features that streamline the development process, making it easier for teams to work together on projects of any size. Here is a brief overview of how GitHub works. So GitHub uses repository, it uses version control system. These are the operations that you can actually perform you can actually, these are the things, the functions that GitHub actually executes. So you can create a repository that is your project file. You can version control, you can collaborate, you can issue tracking, you can set issue tracking, project management, continuous integration, and a lot of things. Let's okay. This is one of the examples we gave. So let's say it's developers is working on web application. They create a GitHub repository for the project where they store all the code, documentation. Each developer clones the repository to their local machine, manage and makes changes and push those changes back to the remote repository. As the project progresses, developers create branches to work on different features or fixes. They use pull requests to propose changes, review each other's code, and discuss any necessary modification. Once a pull request is approved, the changes are merged into the main branch and the cycle continues. So this is just basically what the version control is. So um, GitHub offers GitHub is just like the platform where developers go to build. So there's nothing new here. We have talked about the common commands where you git add. You first of all you initialize your project to the git with git init command. Then after you build, you git add, you do a git commit, then you git remote, you add your remote branch, then you git push to master. So all these are just the basic operations you can perform on GitHub. This was in our second class. Then we move to um, then we move to our third class where we talked about okay, in this class we talked about Node.js modules, require function, asynchronous programming pattern, backend, and database interaction. So, okay, in this class, this was in our third class where we discussed about modules, and we say first of all, you module creation. Any JavaScript file in Node.js is considered a module. You can create your own modules by writing code in a separate files and exporting function, object, or values that you want to make available to other parts of your application. Basically, what this is saying is every JavaScript file is a module in as much as you can export whatever is in that module, or you can export the function, export the object, even a variable. So long as you can export it and can be used in other parts of the application, it is termed a module. So after you create, this is just a part where you create your module, then you export your module to make functionality available from a module. You use the module export or export keyword. This is just the keyword where where let's say you create a module and you want to make use of that module in other parts of the application. This is the command you use, module export keyword. So that's that's for that's for that. So we move next to this is an example. Yeah, this is an example. You see, this is a function here. We actually created a function. Then next we console log. We actually created a function. Then next we console log the function, and yeah, we console log the function, and next we module.export the function. So when you export this function, all you need to do right is to import this particular function and make use of the function. So in our application, I think this was the function we actually called and made use of it in our entry application. So we'll get to that part. So module import, okay, yeah, this is how we import the module. You call that file and call on the function, then pass the function and pass the function wherever you want to make use of it. So when you next we have core modules. Core modules are okay. Node.js comes with a set of built-in modules known as core modules. These modules provide utilities and functionalities and can be imported using require without specifying a path. So this is just an example of how you can import a core module. The core module is I think we discussed furthermore on that. The core module, these are built in Node.js module, not like you built it yourself or there's a package that is attached to it. So next, we discussed on the third-party modules. Third-party modules, which is like our Express, Goodmon, all these are third-party modules. So after that, we discussed about asynchronous programming pattern. Okay, in JavaScript revolve around managing tasks that don't really necessarily happen in sequence. Traditionally, this was done using callbacks, but when the introduction of promises and async await, developers now have more elegant and readable ways to handle asynchronous code. So callbacks are functions passed as arguments to other functions. They are executed when the task completes. Callbacks can lead to callback hell when dealing with nested asynchronous operation. So callback hell is, for example, I think when you are writing a nested code and it doesn't okay, it doesn't just look good when using callbacks in a nested. You have to write callbacks upon callbacks upon callbacks. That's why we say callback here. So these are just basic, basic example of how callbacks work. We actually have a video for this, which was I think in our previous class. So this is a typical example of how callbacks operate. You set a timeout and you call back the function. Then yeah. So next we discussed about promises. Promises provide a cleaner alternative to callbacks by representing the eventual completion or failure of an asynchronous operation. They can be chained together, making it easier to manage multiple asynchronous tasks. Unlike the callback hells that callbacks can lead to in an asynchronous operation. So that's that for that. This is an example of how promises are being written. We're using a set timeout example. So this is just a typical example. You can actually use it here. You can actually write another function inside this function, but once this one passes, then this other one can then the one which has the resolve can actually yeah, once it's a chain asynchronous operation, the one with the resolve um, data can actually pass other functions. So that's that for async await. That's that for promises. So we discussed about async await, which I think is the most commonly used. So I make proper use of async await. So sugar built on top promises. Okay, so async await is a synthetic sugar built on top of promises, making asynchronous code look and behave more like synchronous code. It allows you to write asynchronous code in a sequential manner without nested callbacks or complex promise chains. I think this is what most developers get familiar with, get used to. So then we discussed about back end and database interaction with Node.js. So o- okay, yeah, just stay on the call. Just stay on the call. So we talked about data back end and database interaction with Node.js. So we said backend development involves creating server-side application and APIs that handle requests from clients, process data, and interact with database to store and retrieve information. Node.js with its event-driven, non-blocking input-output model is a popular choice for building back-end systems due to its efficiency and scalability. So what this is saying is backend developments are applications that are built on the server side. So we have different database options where we discussed about SQL databases, which they say it's relational database like MySQL, Progress SQL, and SQLite. All these databases are SQL databases. So then they say are commonly used for structured data storage. They use SQL, which is structured query language, for querying and managing data. Okay, particularly for me now, I am more conversant with using SQL because most of the projects I work with currently is SQL. That's the structured query language. You actually write the SQL query and you store, manage, and just query database using SQL queries. So the next one on our that's another database option we have is the NoSQL. The NoSQL is a non-relational database such as MongoDB, the one we actually used on our project, CouchDB, and Redis, offer flexible and scalability for handling unstructured and semi-structured data. So this type of database actually stores data in an object pattern, not like the table pattern. So we'll get to the part where we discussed about NoSQL. Then there is graph database. This is not really um, for our level now. So interacting with database in Node.js. So using database drivers. That is when you want to interact with this Node.js. When you want to interact with database using your application, that's the Node.js application you built, we can use database drivers. Like one of them in our application, yeah, this is a database driver. I hope you can all see my screen. This is a database driver. This is a database driver where we actually use this driver um, to interact with our database. So back to we say we using database drivers. Node.js provides various database drivers that enables interaction with different database. For example, we have MySQL, PG for Progress, we have MongoDB for MongoDB. Then we have ORMs, object relational mapping libraries like SQLite for SQL database. So these are more advanced or more easier ways of using drivers to also interact with the database. On This give us these ORMs and ODMs gives us the leverage of not writing raw SQL commands. We just write SQL system type of commands, and yes, we can actually interact with our database instead of writing raw SQL commands. So when we get to database, MySQL, and all that, we would get a clearer understanding of what we're talking about. So, like Mongoose, abstract way um, database specific details and provide a more JavaScript centric way of working with data. So this is actually one of the patterns we are using to work on the project. So we have query builders, libraries like Knex, JS offers SQL and query builder interface that allows developers to write database query using JavaScript syntax, making it easier to work with SQL database in Node.js. So we now have database, some common database, basic database operation in Node.js, which is one connecting to the database, that is connecting your application, your Node.js application, to whichever database you choose in using executing query, that is performing um, query on the database, then handling um, results, closing connection. All these things are just the operations we perform on the database. So this is a typical example of connecting a MySQL database with MySQL driver. So we import. You can see everything that we actually learned from the first class to this one is actually surfacing, where we talk about importing a module. This is a third-party module, and this is a node driver, where we import the module. Then this module carries our connection. We connect the module. You pass your database credentials, after which you connect to the database. This shows your connection. Once this is done, boom, you're connected to the database. So this is what we discussed on, I think, our third class. So we'll be moving forward to the fourth class we had. Moving forward to the fourth class, where we performed prod operation with Node.js and MongoDB. Okay, let's look into this. Okay, so I hope we are all following. I hope we're all following. If you're lost anywhere, please bring my attention back. I'm here for you. In this tutorial, we'll be discussing on two topics, which is Postman. Yes, we discussed about Postman and performing prod operation. So let's take this one very fast. Let's take this one very fast. We said, what is Postman to backend engineers? Postman is a tool for API development that simplifies testing, automation, and collaboration. It helps developers send requests to APIs, inspect response, and streamline workflows, making it easier to build and maintain high quality APIs. Okay, reason why we had to discuss about Postman is because Postman is just like the mobile or desktop version, that is the front end version for um, back end developers. Okay, let's say you are building something on the back end, and you're actually building this thing so that the front end will make use of the function you're building or an API which you're building. Yeah, the API you're building. So when it comes to testing this particular function, you are still building on the local server, and this what you're building might be a mobile application for the function, the API you're building might be for a mobile application. So when you want to make those tests, just like the scenario of a mobile application, let's say a mobile application wants to log in to their account on Facebook, So you come to Facebook front end interface, but as a back end developer, you don't have that front end interface. This is where the Postman comes. Postman gives you that ability to actually perform those client side operation together, those client side operation in conjunction with your own um, back end application. So that's just basically what that is. In a more easier explanation, think of Postman as a powerful tool that acts like a magic wand for developers. Okay, it allows you to test and interact with which are like messengers that enable different parts of a software system to communicate with each other. With Postman, you can easily send requests from the client side to the server side without having to write extensive code. It's like having a magic wand and that lets you check if your requests are working correctly and ensure everything runs smoothly before your app goes live. So it's just a platform that gives back-end developers to test their application from the perspective of the front-end side. So that's just basically what this is. So we discussed about the steps to get started with Postman. First of all, you download and install Postman. You launch Postman, explore the interface, create a new request, add headers and parameters if there is any. You send your request, you view and analyze your response. That is just that for Postman. So I hope we by now we should have been familiarized with. Okay, we should have been familiar. We should have gotten more insight of what and how Postman works. Basically, this is Postman. This is our Postman here. Let's try to just do a simple get request and see what I was explaining. Let's try and do a simple get request. I think we should go to Google and search free API for testing JSON. Okay, so this is this is a fake JSON placeholder. I think let's try a get resources. Okay, okay, let's try this. These okay, okay. So this is just a typical example of what how Postman works. So this is our Postman. Let's say you're making a request. You want to make a request. You want to from your phone on Facebook. You want to get the list of your friends or get the list of your friends' requests. So the back end sends this API. I'm just giving an example. Let's say this is the API that fetches users friends list. The back end sends this API to the mobile phone. Once they click on the phone using the get method, boom, you can see the results will be fetched. So this is just basically how um, Postman works. If you also want to send like a post request, you can change the methods from here. You just with time you just get familiar with how it operates, just like how we also use our mobile phones. So you send a post request, you pass your body request around, you pass your body request here. You can either pass it as a JSON file or yeah, a form data. So These are just this is just basically how Postman works. This is the interface, and yeah, that's that. I hope we are following. So next we discussed on performing CRUD operation on MongoDB. So we said performing CRUD operations in MongoDB involves managing data through four fundamental actions: create, read, update, and delete. These operations allow developers to interact with the database to store new data, which is create, retrieve existing data, which is read, modify data, update, and remove data. So this is just basically what the acronym CRUD represents: create, read, update, and delete. So these are just the basic operations we perform on the database. So let's get started. Prerequisite: you should have Node.js Express application and a connected Node application, Express application to MongoDB. So we discussed on how we create our schema. Here again, remember the first part we actually did that of I showed you the connection of MySQL, but in this part we are connecting to a NoSQL, so we actually imported the um, module. We imported the module, which is a third-party module. This is how our connection credentials will be stored. Then we call on the module, then create a schema, right? Pass in the schema module. That's the schema we want for the database, which is a user, which is user model with name, email, row. After which again we pass the model and assign it to user schema. Then we come to this last part where we are exporting the model to be used elsewhere in the application. So let me show you a quick example of what we just did. So this is creating a schema. Okay, so we have our connection here already where we are connected to the database. We are connected. Oh, we are connected to the database. So when you want to create a schema, let's say you want to create a user field, a user storage on your database which you created. You have to create a schema for it. That is um, the fields of or the data you want to get from that user. Here we have name, email, row, and date, which the data the user was the date which the user was actually registered to our application. So we just do this, create a model. This is the model. This line here shows you the model, how you create your model. You call on the Mongo schema, then you pass the model which you want to create. You assign it to schema. Now you create that's the usage of the model in your application. You call it users, then pass the schema which you just created, and then you export the model. So where we actually used this in creating a new user, yeah, I think is here, where we perform the CRUD operation. We created our endpoint, that's our API users sign up, um, user sign up, user data. You pass in the request body, pass the user data, call on that particular module which you are actually the schema module which we have created. You call on the schema module, then you pass your data, then you use the command, you use the um, command save. All these things are just operations that you can perform using this particular mongoose model. using this particular mongoose model. So there's a documentation for that. There's a documentation for that mongoose documentation. So you get to see how you create your model. You create your model. You can see how you use the await save to actually save the model which you have created into the database. There's a lot. You see how you update one. You can There's a lot you would grab from the documentation. So moving forward, this will create a database schema. So this actually creates a schema. Then let's create our API. This is just basically it. So I think our application is already running. So let's see the first API. Let me do a node dot start. Okay, our application is running. Let me come here and let me call MongoDB. I hope we are I hope we are enjoying this class. So what I'm about to do now is send our first request so we can actually see how the API which we built actually works. I'm trying to log into my MongoDB. Okay, this is my database, SpreadTech Africa. This is a database we actually created. Okay, these are the different databases. So we have SpreadTech Africa. Then we come to the browse collection. This is it. Are we all following? Okay, since we are following, let me just perform. We can see we have um, one table here. Let me call it one collection since it's a NoSQL. If it's a SQL database, we'll call this a table, but this is a collection here. So in this collection, let's say we have users. Let's create another collection. Let's create a simple collection again, a simple schema. Let's come here. Let's call this schema. Let's call this schema. Let's call this schema students. Students.js. We're calling this schema students.js. So let's just copy everything here. Control C. Hope we are following. So now we have our student.js. So let's call this. Let's call this student model email. We'll change this to class. Class, we call this number. Number. Okay. Now let's call it a string. Let's call it a string. Okay. So we have this, then we pass. Hope we are following. We should follow this. So this is important. This is just basically the things we do in the back end. So what we are actually doing now, we want to create a schema. What this schema is just the structure of how we want to store students in the database, where we have name, email, class. We are using this particular. Remember, this is an object. If you guys can remember how we do create objects, this is an object. We have created this object and we called it student name, and the object has all these variables inside. So now in Mongoose, how you create a schema is you call on that Mongoose schema, then you pass the student module. Then here let's call this the name of the model we are about to create, students, right? If we call it students, we pass the schema, user schema. Okay, let's call this student schema. Then we'll export this student schema. Now we have this, right? And it's all good. So what next we do is okay, we have saved this. Let's come to our database and refresh. Let's see. Okay. Okay, we don't have it here already. We don't have it yet. So reason why is because we don't have this application on our entry file. That's the part just like the headquarter of the file that actually runs the application. So let's call that schema. Okay. Let's call that okay. So we call this to student schema. So now we have this. So let's refresh and see. We can see that in our database now we have students. We have students, but the data is empty. If you can see, we have students, but the data is empty. So let's create an API. Let's create an API that actually adds students. Okay. In order for us to do that, let's copy this API. Hope we're all following. Let's copy this API and let's call it create student API. Now let's change this to students. This endpoint, hope we can see, we are changing this endpoint to student. It's going to be student sign up. Remember, we are running on ports. We are running on port local port 3000. So this is what we are going to do now. We have named the endpoint. We are calling request body. Request body. This request body is going to be the data which is going to be passed from the front end, that is the client side. Then we are assigning that request, that user data to this particular user. The the model which we have created. But in our own in this situation, we are not. It is not. It is called students. If you all can remember, this is it here. This is where we imported the module. This module, if you see, if I click on it, it takes me to this particular module. Then we export the module and assign it to students. You copy this. Once you copy this, you come to this place and you assign the student. You can see it's already carrying the whole the whole data. That's the whole schema module, name, email, and class. So next we want to save. We save, after which we call on the response that student has been created. Student added successfully. User. So let's perform this particular post operation. Let's come to our postman. Remember, we have this is our endpoint. It's running on port 3000. Hope we are all following. For those ones who don't really understand how, okay. So let's perform this post operation. Post. Once this is done, okay. So hope we are following. We have performed. Now I'll take this endpoint, then come to this point, then place it. So body raw. We have our data type here is supposed to be name, string, email. I think we do have that on our. Okay, this is the data we want to pass. Postman. So we pass this data, but taking this one as class. Hope I'm not too fast. Hope we're all following. So we can see, let's call this one student. Let's call this student finals. Let's call it finals. As we are passing, um, let's call, who are we going to name this? Let's name this as who? Who is here? Who is active now? Okay, my guy. Control C. Okay, let's name this as my guy. Okay, so we have this as my guy. Then let's say my guy at Gmail. This is just an example. So these are the parameters we want to be passing to the table to MongoDB. If you can see, we have all this, and date is by default. So what we do is our server is already running. So what we do next is just hit this send button. Hope you are seeing. You hit this send button, and boom, this is the response that you are sending to the front end. Students added successfully. If you check our route here, you can see we have student added successfully, then user, we are passing the user which we just added. So now let's go to MongoDB. So now let's go to MongoDB and see. If you come to MongoDB and you refresh and you come to student, we can see we already have one student here, which is Esna Magai. So by doing this, okay, okay, we already have a student. So by doing this, this is just a simple way we can actually add data to the database. So hope we, hope we can all see the magic. Next, we talked about creating an endpoint that gets. So yeah, we have an endpoint here that gets. What you just do is you call on that, you create an endpoint, you use the command user find. This method is actually a mongoose method that actually is um, that actually finds data based on the based on the parameter which you are feeding it. So there is find by ID, there's find. This actually finds all the users. So we also have our edit, which uses a put method. The put method actually, what it does here is, okay, we have a command which say find by ID and update. So if let's say we want to update, let's create an endpoint that updates that particular user. Let's do a quick one. So you see, let's call this student. Let's say update stu- update student update student by ID. So next we come here, update. You say you passing the students. What's the student schema? Find by ID, user data, ID, update it with the user data, then true. Okay, these are not found. Okay, this should be student not found, but we're in place, we're using user. Then if okay, then you return your response. So this is just a simple way of updating students. In this situation, we'll be passing the student's ID. So let's do that. Let's copy this. Control C. Create another one. Hope you are following. Okay. So we paste this. Take out the. Then we come here. Take this ID. This is the ID we want to copy. Copy the ID. Then come to this. Come to Postman. Paste the ID. Okay. Now we pass the body of um, this is the body we want to update. So next we pass a put method. Remember the update here is a put method. You can see this, right? Then we have students, we have our ID, right? So now we want to change this. Let's change this to someone, another person's name. Remember, we just have one result here, if you can remember. So we come here. Who is online again? We have Chuku Blessing. Let's use Chuku Blessing. We say we are trying to update this name to Chuku Blessing. Remember, we have the ID Chuku Blessing. Let's change this to blessing at Gmail. Let's call this beginner. All right. So once we do this, we have see how fast it is. User updated successfully. Our user has been updated on so date. So this is what's happening now. If you come to this point, you can see. Let's refresh it. Boom. Esther has been changed to blessing. Chukwu, the email has been changed to blessing, and the class from final has gone back to beginner. So this is just what creating an API using Postman, you understand, to interact on the client side. This is just like, let's say this is your mobile phone, you want to update your user account on Facebook. You change from this is just how the interaction works from front end then to back end. Back end does the modification. This is your server side. This is how your server side looks at the operation, takes the data, it finds the data and updates it. So this we cannot see how it looks easier to do. It's just have a great understanding of how things work, and boom, you're good to go. So that's basically that um, updating for updating a user on MongoDB. So if you want to delete a user, you can also still do this. You take that particular user, find by ID, pass find by ID and delete. This is just the command that does it. If you check your um, MongoDB documentation, you get all these methods and more on how to perform different operations. So that's that for that. I think we should be done with performing CRUD operation. Next, let's move to deploying our project to the live server so that it's not just going to be on my computer. So there are different platforms where you can update, where you can upload your project to run online. But we'll be using Node.js backend project. So we'll be using Vercel, which is a platform for hosting application. Okay. Deploy to Vercel. So this is their documentation, but I just wanted to go to their app. Okay, this is Vercel's homepage. They offer a lot of services. You can check them out. So on this operation, we'll be using Vercel. Um, it's been a while. It's a live class, and it's interesting. We'll go through it together. So um, this is what we are going to be doing. Okay, so now we want to deploy this our application. We have successfully created a very this is if you have this project file, we should all have this project file. Meanwhile, before we go further, let me push this recent changes I just made. So please pay attention to see how those operations we talked about, where we talked about our GitHub operation, how to actually push, git add, do all those things. So first of all, I come here and I do my git status. If I use my git command git status, it shows me files or list of files that I just made modifications on or I just added. So from here you can see I actually added a new file which is still showing green, and I did a modification on app.js file, the endpoint we just created. So now I want to generally add I want to add all this file. That is, I want to how do I put it? I want to move them from on stage to staging. Yeah, they are okay. Now you can see change, not stage for commit. So I want to move them to a staged level so that I can commit this particular file so I can make a push to the remote repository. So this is how we do it. In order for me to just do just this particular one, I would have to call just this file. But in order for me to do everything at once, I would use dots. These dots now, we can all see my hope you can see my screen. This dot now represents all files. I click on enter and boom. If I come here, git status, again, let me know the status of my project. So you can see this, they say changes to be committed, right? All these files now have been staged, right? So if I want to commit this particular commit is like passing a message that okay, the file is actually okay. This is the level it is at. That's the last stage before it was pushed. I do this git commit finished. Let me finished creating. and endpoints and testing postman. This is the commit message that I'm using. I click on enter. I try git status. You get the message on branch master, nothing to commit, working tree branch. So now there's nothing else to commit. My file is clean and let's call this a default state, a working project. So next thing I need to do is I want to push to the remote repository so that we all can have this particular project. So I use the command git push origin. So this origin is actually the top layer, that's the main branch which I want to push to. Then you call on the master name. If I call on this git push master, but on in a platform where you are actually working with different programmers, where let's say we are all working together as a team, we're all working together as a team, and someone makes an update. The first thing you do before pushing to um, the remote repository is you git you git pull origin, then use master, right? This brings a completed version of those updated files that you don't have to your application before you push back. So this doing this makes you avoid merge conflicts and all the issues you are likely to get from GitHub. So in our situation, I think I'm the only one pushing now to this particular repository, collaborating now on this particular repository. So I will do a git push origin master, git push origin master. If I do this, boom, our application has been pushed. So let me come to GitHub. Let me refresh. This is our project file. You can see Prono 96 finished creating an endpoint and testing Postman. This was the last commit message I just dropped, and you can all see our project here. So next thing I want to do is we have to push to deploy this application to vercel. We have seen the layout of vercel, and let's please can I get a second. Um, So we were discussing on how we would deploy this very good application to Vessel. So what we need to do is I already have a blog on that. I'll be sharing the link right now with everyone. So okay, next will be okay. Okay, hello, dear. My friend, I hope you're having a fantastic time coding because it's truly an enjoyable experience. All these are the introduction. Let's go to okay, the prerequisite create or have a GitHub account for free. Create or have a Vessel account for free. Have a Node.js project. Okay, already we have our project. Express, install Express. Then next we need to create a vessel. We need to create a vessel.json file in the root of our directory. This will this file is responsible for configuring vessel in our application. Okay. So what we do is we create a vessel file from our tutorial. Okay, create a vessel file. Let's call this vessel.js. Mhm. If I'm not mistaken, you see. Okay, create a vessel.json file. F- This is going to be a vessel.json file. Then in the file, you just copy this. I hope this still works. There have not been any changes. Then the destination in our own, we are using app.js. We're using app.js. Is this the only thing we need to do? I think once we have this, the above configuration specifies the version of vessel configuration file format being used. In this case, it's version 2. The build array specifies the build settings for this project, which takes the index.json, which take the index okay as the entry point of the file. But in our own case, we are using the app.js. Overall, this configuration file tells Vessel how to build and serve the Node.js application. Okay, this is just that. So next we have we have this file in our project. Then say if you are able to do this, you are set and ready to go live. So next you need to push your project to the remote repository on GitHub. Vessel will be listening to the main branch. After every push made, the repository to made to the repository of to up, after every push made to the repository to update your deployment. So basically what this is saying is using this particular file, Vessel will be targeting this app.js file as the entry point. So whichever time we make a new change, Vessel also would use that particular file to update its own server. So that's just that. So next, let's go to they say so if your project is now in the remote repository on GitHub, you need to go to Vessel dashboard to add a new project from GitHub, which is the repository of the project you want to deploy. All right, so let's go through this together. We just added this file. Don't we need a package? Okay, if you have this file, let me try something. Don't I need to install a package? How do I use the latest npm version? Okay. Okay. Actually, vercel is not really built compatibly for Node.js, but using this configuration, I think would be enough to deploy the application. So let me do this git status. We just made a recent change, git status. Hope we are following. Git add, that same operation. Next, we do our git commit. I call it added vercel configuration. Mhm. Then next, git push origin master. So we have this and our application. You do a okay. Let's refresh. Okay, added vercel. All right, so let's come to our vercel. Let's come to our vercel. Just come here and do add new projects, just like what we have on our blog. We add a new project. Next, you will need to import the GitHub repository. Okay, so let's search. Let's use a search. So it will be easier. Okay. Mm, So why is it not? Okay, let me manually. Okay. Okay. I think I need to selected repository. Let me include SpreadTech. Okay, I think I have to select some of this repository. I don't just give access to. Okay, we have SpreadTech backend. So let me import. Okay. Node.js is not provided here. We don't have Node. Okay, we'll leave it as order. Then root directory. Okay. Then build an output setting. Okay, we are going to be using. Okay. Okay, we're going to be leaving this one like that. Then environment variable. Okay. Okay, so let me do. I think I have environment variable, which is our connection. But it's supposed to be on our env, that's the database. Control C. Hope we are all following. Mhm. Okay, this has been set. Okay, our building is happening. Hope we are seeing the screen. Okay. Okay, our application is actually building. Congratulations. Wow. Hello from my function. So our application is currently live. I'm so excited. We should be excited about this. Okay, so this is our application. Let's go to dashboard. So you can see hello from function is Our application does, I think, the entry part where we are actually calling. If you come to the first endpoint which we have, that actually does, okay, app gets function, which calls a function, and the function it calls is, if we can remember, where we have, okay, my function, right, which console logs my function, it returns the function my function, a hello from my function. So our application is set, and it's live. Let's try something. Let's try, let's go to, okay, this is our app, this is our app URL. You can see hello. Let's call this Control C, and let me pass this to you guys. Okay, this is the link to our, link to our, so now if you go through the link, it takes you to our function. That's basically it. So we can share the link. Hello, Chuku Blessing. What did you say? You say you can't see the screen. So this is the link we have created. We have deployed our application. Our application is live. Let's call some of those endpoints which we have. Okay. Let's call some of those endpoints which we use in creating users. Okay, getting our users. We haven't created that endpoint yet, but let's call on this, getting users. This should work. Control C. I think, wow, you can see it actually calls. Let's do this on Postman so we get a clear. If you come here, if you come here and do this, paste this. As we all can see, it is calling the users we have on the database. We have two objects already, Chinwe, and we have this one too. If we come to our database and check collection of users, you can see we have two users on the database. So that is that for how we can actually how we can actually deploy our application to vercel. Very simple and easy. First thing you do is you create a vercel JSON. You pass this parameter, that's this JSON file, this JSON object here. After doing that, you go to your JSON, you go to your vercel application, create an account. If you don't have, if you already have an account, fine. Then you push your application to GitHub, import that application. If there's environment variable which you want to pass, you also pass that environment variable. So basically, we have this project, and this project is live and also on GitHub. So in our last class, I dropped an assignment for us to do, which was to create essential bits. Hmm? This was us performing code operation. Okay. Um, okay. The assignment was on my Google Docs. Yeah, I think Becky has the assignment. Okay, so this is your project assignment. This is your project assignment. Task description. Your task is to create a CRUD, that is create, read, update, and delete application for managing students' record. The application should allow users to perform the following operations: create, that is register a new student with details such as name, age, and grade, right? Read, view all lists of registered students and view details of a specific student by ID. That is, you're going to be creating two endpoints: the endpoints that actually view all the students and the endpoints that actually view a student by ID. And also, we'll be updating. You also perform an update operation, update the details of an existing student, which you also did. Delete, delete a student record. All these things are all the operations we have done. Then the requirements, it requires a Node.js Express application. These ones are the basic things. Okay, this is how the evaluation is going to be done. Your submission will be evaluated based on the following: completeness and correctness of your CRUD operation, proper error handling and validation, clarity and readability of code, documents of the API endpoint and usage. All these things are things, most of them, some of these ones we have discussed, some we haven't discussed. So you have to do your research on your own. They are minor things, and this is your submission guideline. Submit your code files. That is, you're going to submit your project file. I think we'll be doing that with, yeah, I think we'll be doing that with docs. Yeah, sending that via docs, and include a README file. You're going to include a README in your application that shows how you set up the application. So some of these are the things we have done. We have done all how to set up an Express application. All I just need back is to give it back to us to give us clarification that yes, you understand all these things that we have been saying so far. So document your API endpoints and their usage. All these things too are simple things which you can do. You can put it in your README. You can create an a postman collection and send us the link. So all these things, these are, I think, if you are able to do this as a beginner, then you should be proud of yourself. You should be proud that you have literally achieved these things in a short period of time, and imagine what you can do in a year to come. So that's that for that. We all have this assignment. I'll be pushing it to Becky again. Okay, so we are done. Please, is there anyone with question? Anyone with question? Does anyone have anything to say? Any question? Any question? Hi guys, if you're here with me, can you say hi? Can you drop a hi? Let me know we are following. Okay. In the absence of question, I assume that we have been able to um, understand the concept or the idea of how to deploy our application to Verso to have our application live. This is actually an interesting class because having your project live is actually what it entails. When you start building your own application, going live or launching your application is one of those exciting moments. So I think this class is it's one of those important classes. Okay. Can you explain more on exporting module? Okay. Just seeing your message now. Can you explain more on exporting module? Okay, yeah. So basically, what modules are? For example, let's. This is a module. Let's call this a module, a schema module. We have this here. Mind you, we have created. Let's follow it step by step. First of all, we imported this. After importing this, we created an object. This object was used when creating a schema, right? This creates a schema. Then later, we call this again, which actually creates the model, which actually creates the model. This is a model of a schema. So now, this is what we want to export. We want to export this particular line here. So the way we actually do it is we use the keyword model.export. So we are exporting student schema. That is, we are actually exporting this particular line here has the whole variable it needs here, and we are exporting it here. So when we export this, next is in area where we want to use this particular student model, we come to we import them. So in our situation, in our app.js file, that's which is our entry application, we want to make use of this particular student module that we have created. So we have used the word key, we use the keyword export. So next is we come here and import that particular file. If you remember, if I click on this, if I use a controller and hover through my mouse and click on this, you see it takes us to that particular file. Now coming back to the app.js, we have actually imported this. This is just basically how you import your module. You call the require function, pass in the route or the route to that particular file, assign it to a variable. You can see when I hover upon this student, it shows me the module of that. You see mongoose model. It shows me everything that I need, everything that I will be using in that particular model. So in our situation, when we want to add students, we use the model. That is just how it works. You create a module, you export that module, you import the module in areas where you want to make use of it. So that is just basically what it does. Okay, a readme is just what explains your project in GitHub. Usually, what GitHub readme does is you put those things you want to explain to other developers. Just like here we have a readme. Let's say I want to edit this readme. Let's say I want to edit this readme, right? There are different stylings which you can actually use in editing a readme. They use markups. Markups. Let me check an example. Sample example of markup. Okay. what do you call that myself? Sample example of how to write markdown. Is it markdown? Um, okay, yeah, I think it's markdown. Okay, I say markup. So these are basically how you write your markups. Okay, well, yeah, we can do this Control C. They are similarly like HTML tags, but a different a different type. Let's say, okay, yeah, let's come to this particular point. Let's do this. This is a README right now. A README file now, a GitHub project. This is a heading. Let me copy this. Let me call this and paste it here. If I do a commit change, you guys just watch what wants to happen now. If I do a commit change, right? You can see this particular project has become bigger. It has become bigger. So a README basically is just another file in your project where you can actually explain your project or drop whatever is related to that particular project. If you come to our project file now, we have that README, but the README is somehow not updated. It's somehow not updated here. So let me show you something. Let me show you something so you get a glimpse of how the Git pull works. Let me do a Git status, right? Then Git push, okay, a Git add. So hope I've answered your question. Blessing. Git add. Git add. So if I do a Git pull, you will see that let me do a Git pull origin master, Git pull origin master. You will see that can we see the way this particular heading now is totally different from the way it was because of it's just the same thing as that of the way the GitHub file, the GitHub file on is also on number line 3. So basically, this is just how uh, these things work. If you update your README here also and push to GitHub, you're going to get the updated version also. So that's that for that. Please, who else has a question? Any other question? Any other question? We have 5 minutes left for our class to end. So let me actually perform this operation. Let me push this to, let me say git status. Let me add more to our readme project file for SpreadTech Africa. Hmm, let me copy mark them. Okay, let's add this. Then we say, let's call this. Let's say, let's call it best goods camp 2024. So we are doing this now. You would see this will also appear on our Git status. Okay, Git add. Git commits. Finished readme. So once I do a git push origin master, so okay, hope you can see. So if I click on this, you will see best bootcamp in um, in italic form, just from this example we got here. So these are basically, um, yeah, this is just readme. You can update it here. You can update it from the project file. So, in the absence of more questions, I think we have come to the end of this class, and I am very grateful for those that stayed back. I believe we have learned a lot today. If if not for anything, you already have the understanding that a project can be published live using vercel, and yeah, that's that for that. And I think this is the end of our class. So I'll just give us 30 seconds more if there is anyone with question. If there's anyone with question, you can drop your question. So okay. So thank you guys. Thank you for showing up. You're welcome, and this is the end of our class. If there's any other question or you need any assistance with your assignment, you can duly well drop it on the group. Thank you. Have a wonderful day. Bye bye.